Learning about the human skeleton is a vital part of learning how to draw human anatomy. Think of it like your initial framework for the body. It tells you how the body should move and how each part will connect proportionally to one another. When I learned the skeleton in university, I watched my anatomy skills increase tenfold. The skeleton can seem pretty intimidating when you first take a look at it, but it's actually a lot simpler than you might think. Breaking it down reveals just how simple it can be, so today we'll break down the first major section called the axial skeleton. The axial skeleton. These are parts of the skeleton that don't come in pairs. They do not come in pairs. So if I give you a name of a bone, there is only one of it. The only thing that kind of breaks that rule is the rib cage, but don't worry about it. These bones are also part of the center of the body, right? Axial skeleton, so it's on an axis. The axial skeleton, it is on the vertical axis of the body, right? That's the way you can remember that. Like I mentioned, this is a simpler part of the skeleton to grasp. This is a lot easier to sort of start out on. The appendicular has a lot more bones to remember. So the axial skeleton, right axis, appendicular, appendages, right? You can sort of take a guess at what the two of them mean. Take a guess what the appendicular is based on that, right? The axial skeleton is on an axis. The appendicular is your appendages. Okay, it's enough writing. We're gonna actually start on the drawing part. As I start to draw the skeleton, you'll see me use the mirror tool, mostly just to speed up my process. The skeleton, while it's easy to learn, isn't the easiest to draw with with precision, especially in a space where I have a very limited amount of time to both teach and draw out my demos. Tools for efficiency like mirroring help a lot. But if you'd rather see a more thorough breakdown of how I draw the skull, you can check out the link in the description for our video on how to draw skulls. You don't need me to tell you, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. There really isn't anything else to say about it. It's a skull. It's like, it's not, there's nothing more to say about it. We know what a skull is, so we can move on. I'm going to give a better explanation of the spine in a sec, but just to note that the cervical part of the spine, the neck, doesn't connect directly to the chin. We've got to think in a 3D space when drawing anything, so if we turn the head to a profile view, the spine connects closer to the center of the back of the skull at the cranium. Each part of the spine can be broken down into a few segments with specific amounts of vertebral bodies. I mentioned it briefly a little bit later, but it's easy to tell where each segment changes because of the changes of the spine's bend that we can see from the profile view. We've got a lot of S-shapes in our body, and each curve in a different direction indicates a new spinal section. Now imagine drawing this entire skeleton in a ballerina pose. Okay, number 2. This is your vertebral column, also known as your spine. Hee hee hoo hoo. Okay, so I'm gonna do some color coding really quickly. It's hard to tell the sections of the spine from the front, so just to make it easier, I color code each part for a better visual indication. Your vertebral column split into 5 sections, if you didn't know that, right? The whole thing is the spine, the whole thing is the vertebral column, but you've actually got 5 different sections that you're working with when we talk about the entire spine as a whole, all right? Cervical, which is 7 pieces. You've got the thoracic, which is 12 pieces. You've got the lumbar, which a bunch of you have probably heard that word before, which is 5 pieces. You've got the sacrum, which is 5 fused pieces. And you've got this funny little guy down here, which is called the Coxix, which is 3 to 5 pieces, because it can change per person. Alright, so we've got the vertebral column. Alright, vertebral column, or your spine, which is split into 5 different sections. You got your cervical, which is made of 7 pieces. This is your neck, right? If you don't know what the cervical part of your spine is your neck. If you kind of feel a hard part at the base of your neck, that is C4 and 5, if you didn't know that. So you can probably feel that part. The thoracic spine, which is made of 12 pieces, is where your rib cage is. It's your thorax, right? So where your ribs are, that part of your spine, 12 pieces, is what makes up the back of your ribs, okay? So that is the thoracic part of the spine. The lumbar is your lower back. This is the part that bends, that lets you wobble from side to side. Also the part that has the most problems. It's very common to have a lot of problems on your lumbar spine, which is why a lot of people are like, oh, this chair has lumbar support, because you need support for your lumbar more often than not. It is the area on the body with the most flexion in terms of your spine. Yes, it is. The lumbar is the most flexible part of the spine. One of the most flexible parts of the spine. The cervical and the lumbar are pretty close to each other. If you're more of a reader, you can check out my notes in both the axial and the appendicular skeletons, and the link in the description. Again, thoracic, that's where your rib cage is. Lumbar, that is your lower spine. Your sacrum, This is the part of your spine that connects your pelvic bones. It is also a fused set of 4 vertebral pieces. Pretty sure a bunch of us know what a pelvis looks like, right? So in the back of the pelvis, this is a really shoddy pelvis, but the pelvic bone is part of the appendicular skeleton because there's technically 2 pieces that are connected together, and the sacrum is the thing in the center that holds them 2 together. All right, so your sacrum is 5 fused pieces, and your coccyx, which is also known as your tailbone. So if we had tails, that is the bone that would continue. Most people have 4 coccyx pieces. Some people have 5, some people have 3. It depends on the person. But yes, if we were to grow out a tail, that is what would get bigger. Last time I drew a rib cage, it took me 5 hours. So I'm going to rush this a little bit so it doesn't take 5 hours. The ribcage is probably the most intricate and most complicated part of the skeleton to draw. I'm sure you can hear just how I feel about drawing it with precision based on the exasperation in my voice. I'm using the mirror tool to speed along the process again, but you can't really do that if you're going to be drawing it from a different angle. So it's good to keep in mind that the ribcage is a more egg shape than an actual oval shape, but also try to take it slow and keep track of where each rib is in relation to the sternum and the spine. It can get a little messy looking and a little hard to track, but just stay vigilant and you'll get there.
Oh, okay. Okay, I did it. Okay, 3. This is your thoracic cage, or your rib cage, plus your sternum, which the sternum is this funny little green thing in the center here. So your sternum is that center guy right there. The sternum is the thing in the center that holds it all in place. But your thoracic cage, your rib cage, we have 12 pairs of ribs. So 24 ribs in total. So the thoracic cage or the rib cage, this is the one thing that kind of breaks the rule of it doesn't come in pairs, but technically they're not like in pairs, quote unquote. It's considered like one big bone thingy or whatever. It's not like we have 2 rib cages. We just have a rib cage made up of symmetrical thingies, right? So we have 12 pairs of ribs, or 24 ribs in total. So ribs are also actually connected to the sternum by cartilage. If you take a deep breath in, deep breath out, you can feel your chest expand and decompress. That is your rib bones moving and expanding to allow your lungs to expand and contract, right? So ribs are connected to the sternum by cartilage, and this allows for movement, expansion, and contraction, which is what your lungs need to do in order to move. So we have 24 ribs in total, and I have color-coded them differently because we actually have 3 different types of ribs. The first type of ribs are our true ribs. So our true ribs, our rib pairs 1 through 7, are directly connected to the sternum, right? You can see right here, right? They're directly connected to the sternum itself, right? So these are our true ribs, the ones that are properly on there. The next set that we have are false ribs, which are ribs 8 through 10. So false ribs are the ones that are connected to each other's cartilage, right? You notice it here. It doesn't actually connect directly to the sternum. They're sort of just connected to each other. These are our false ribs, right? They're still there, and it creates this arch. If you've ever watched me draw somebody and like you see me do like this magic, that's me drawing this arch here, this rib cage arch, and it gives me an idea of what's in front and what's behind. Helps a lot, actually. It's a good way to get your forms in there. All right, so your false ribs are ribs 8 through 10, and rib pairs 11 and 12 are floating ribs. Our floating ribs are just completely disconnected, right? So ribs 11 and 12, you can see in the back here, these guys are floating ribs. They're kind of just there. They're assisting in the back, right? One final note that I'm just gonna plop in here. When we are dealing with the spine, okay, when we draw it from the side, because I'm giving you this from the front, when we draw the spine from the side, it is really easy. It is much easier to tell the different parts because they'll actually all bend in different ways. Because we have arches to our back. We are not perfectly one way or the other, right? It's not straight up and down. We have curves. And obviously you can like accentuated, or I accentuate mine. You can accentuate it, you can tone it down, whatever. And like obviously you can change that. It's like maybe somebody is like super, they got chimp back, so then theirs ends up looking a lot crunchier, right? You can mess around with it, whatever, but just remember that your back is never fully straight. Just like when you talk about your eyes, you never draw your eyes like this. You make sure that it's curved, right? That kind of thing, right? So on and so forth. Cool and epic. Why'd you choose to draw this, Jesse? That's a great question. Like honestly, I just like drawing my partner's D&D characters. Realistic. This piece doesn't even relate to his character, honestly. Like he's smoke themed. This character's smoke themed. He's just a little bit creepier, and I felt like giving him a see-through ribcage. I don't know. Sometimes I just pick things that I want to draw instead of like thinking really hard about it. It makes approaching artwork a lot easier. I've got a lot of students who are always worried about making the next big piece or feeling intimidated by starting a new piece, but I think the reason that that's so hard sometimes is because we overthink it before we even start. You know, like try not to make huge things every time. That's like so much pressure. You know, you all get a curated look at like the more finished pieces that I'm realistically being paid to do, and those make up maybe like what, like 10% of what I do on a daily basis. Like I draw daily, yeah, but do you really think I do stuff like this every day? No, like 90% of my work is smaller, silly, self-indulgent doodles or like half-finished concepts for personal things just so I can keep my wrist moving. You know, like try not to always make big stuff, right? Just always try to make stuff. It doesn't have to be good first, just make it exist, you know? You probably want to know how I do this glowing torso thing. So the rest is pretty self-explanatory. All of this part is just an overlay layer. By darkening everything else with a multiply layer, it makes it look like it's glowing. Then all it's about is adding the lighting to the rest of the body with another overlay layer. It doesn't need to be set to overlay, it just gives the look that I was hoping for in this piece specifically. But you should try experimenting with your layers to get different looks and effects. If you'd prefer to see this lesson in full, check out the full live stream lesson done in real time, link in the description. Here's a couple other videos you can check out next.